السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Good evening. Welcome to the Masjid Carpark podcast, episode 63. How are you, Pima?
Assalamu
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. What a big week this has been. All over the place.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting time.
What
It's been
happened?
a sad time. What happened? We've had floods. We had an earthquake in New Zealand today, South Island.
It's not a
Nothing
regular
happened.
thing.
Yeah, it's a regular thing.
Yeah. But in Morocco, they had a few thousand people died.
Yeah.
Very sad to see. I was watching a video of a wedding party that basically the two families, all of them survived because they had the wedding
Wow.
outside and they had like those big tents. So nobody,
Mashallah.
so they were very lucky.
So they went in a venue hall.
There were no building. Everybody, the whole village was at. They were very fortunate. They were very lucky. But 2,000 people there. But worse
That's
than
from
that was
Allah.
the flood strange flood in Libya, where like it's like shocking the number you hear. Like you hear
A
floods.
whole town was just wiped out.
Yeah, half
Whole
the
city.
town. Yeah, it's just like carved through the middle of it. Like two dams just broke, and then the warnings were there before, but because of the political strife there, it was neglected. They didn't
Well,
take it
Libya
seriously.
doesn't actually have a government now.
Well, parts of it doesn't. There's like sort of like two governments, and then I think they're in the middle sort of thing. They sort of affiliate one, and then because they were like an pro-ISIS sort
Oh,
of.
really?
Well, I don't think everybody there was, but there was they were like one of the centers, and then so there's like not a lot of stuff for Lazim, but not a love for them, and so then, but I don't think it's the whole town. Obviously, I think that place was taken over.
Do you think they used HARP?
No, I mean, like Allah knows best, but it was rain and like catastrophic, and then
All those conspiracy theorists, when I've said HARP,
yeah, because a lot of people died. 20,000 people died. May Allah forgive them, have mercy upon them. And
is that
drowned person or person in a collapsed building or a fire, they're actually shaheed. So Allah's given them that. But the number is like 10 to 20,000 is like a shocking, huge number for a flood. Like you never hear that type of.
there must have been an intense force flood. If people can't escape. to
Yeah, it
safety.
was like, and it was because everybody's inside. It was sleep. It was like early hours or something like that. So may Allah have.
Mercy on them all.
Yeah, I mean, the as we mentioned last week, inshallah, we'll be talking today about the
voice.
and the yes and no vote.
And we have
for that.
John Farnham here as our
So if you
special
go to
guest.
the official referendum booklet or pamphlet that's put up, it's got all the arguments for yes and no. There are a few places you can go to get more information. Obviously, I mean, people are well informed and they can go online, especially YouTube. There's so many channels. There's for and against arguments. There's some emotional arguments on both sides.
I'm more from the emotional side.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not an emotional decision. It's
It's the Constitution, of course.
constitution. It's a legal decision, and hence we're changing the supreme of the country.
The document that governs how the country is going to run
Exactly. So
and who's going to
any
rule.
changes to that is like it's a legalistic. Anyway, there are legalistic arguments. There
And
are
referendums are
emotional
required.
arguments, and the vote has been put as in the majority to the in a democracy is put to what most of
So
the people think.
Basically, any changes to the referendum, into the Constitution, any like this go through a referendum because the Constitution is owned by all Australians. It's not something like where you've got the government makes laws and stuff like that. It's very different to that. Out of the 48 referendums that have happened in Australia so far, only 8 have passed. So Australians are notorious for protecting, for want of a better word, the original intent and the legal wording of the Constitution.
Yeah, like it's if it's not broken, don't fix it, sort of thing.
It's an Australian attitude.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, they will think very carefully about it, and they're usually they are well informed about it, and they'll listen to all the arguments, and they will see through the hype or the emotion.
Not always. Look what happened during the Republic debate.
Yeah, but they saw through it because they will put it.
It was a no.
It was a no, and the reason why it was a no because they didn't want to. They generally liked the idea of republic, but they didn't like the model that was put in front. So they voted on against it
And
because they didn't
no,
want the
but-
parliament to decide on the president. They'll give more power to the parliament, another power to the parliament to choose the.
So they wanted to go the American way, where
Not necessarily, but they wanted the
Maybe.
average person to be able to have a say in it. You know, yeah, they wanted the average person to have more direct, more
was that-
direct.
just from memory, that referendum was about should we change our head of state or not, not the makeup.
But then
of
the
it.
model that was presented was that the parliament will choose.
And this is where they're stuffing up, because even if you present a model, and this is something that even got people that vote for the voice have to understand, even if a model is presented, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what in its final form it's going to be.
Exactly, because it'll go through parliament
It's
and
got to go
there'll
through
be a lot of
parliament.
wheeling and
Both sides of
dealing
the
and
house have to
discussions.
agree with it.
Yeah.
So it's not, but this is the problem I find with the referendum, is that the opposing side always paints a picture of doom and gloom or black and white, but it's not that black and white, right?
Yeah,
So
I don't think some have done that, and not all.
I
of them
think
done.
the no
Not-
side has done that.
No, they have not done it.
I feel like
some
they have.
no. I've listened to a lot of the no side, and they have not done. Many of them just done very legalistic. There are those ones that they've done that we're going to become a racist country or something like that. That's those.
See, I disagree with that.
No. Some of the no people have said that, but not all no people say that. That's the thing. There's like constitutional lawyers involved, and they present
Some
very
very
legal.
impressive constitutional lawyers.
Yeah, so they like really know, and they speaking from very strictly legal and not emotional. And then you see on the other side the no campaign, the yes campaign, giving very
Here we go.
emotive and emotional. No, they're giving.
No, but the yes
we're
campaign
going to
is
become
definitely more
apartheid.
emotional.
We're going to become apartheid if we don't have this. What are you talking about? Like
No, I haven't heard that.
yeah, one of the Aboriginal leaders, like he said, that it become apartheid. Like, no, that's not where Australia's
no,
going.
I
The overall trend is they want to they appreciate this community. Australians have learned to appreciate the Aboriginal culture,
And the history of the Aboriginal people.
and they've appreciated it's part of our school books. I'm just going right back to the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, but even in the 80s and 90s, what we were taught, the majority of it was incorrect.
The fact that it was, all right, that we were taught and made familiarized with terminology, language, things, culture, practices, meaning that the overall trend was, there's room for improvement, but basically to educate about that there's only us, there's no us and them, and then to make familiar, to be comfortable with these people, that these are part of, like, we're one Australians, right? This was the sense that I got when I was
the way you're selling it, you're making it sound very loving. It wasn't.
No, but
I
the
didn't get that
fact
sense
that
when
it's
I was in school.
included in part of the education, that this is,
Yeah, but what was the majority of what was included in part of education was an outright lie.
what are you talking about?
That when it comes to the history of the Aboriginal people, what happened to them? Only recently, even within the last 5 years, have we found out the amount of massacres that have happened. Have we found out the amount of abuse they've
I'm
gone
not talking
through?
about that. I'm not.
Well, that's what
I'm talking about kids being
Yeah, I'm
exposed
talking
to
about
Aboriginal
kids.
culture, not just European culture, which the majority of the country is.
Okay.
So they've actually incorporated the fact that they've allowed that to come into textbooks and sociology, social whatever, like history, sociology. Like, okay, they've actually normalized that this is part of the fabric of this country, all right?
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah, so I think that's I don't know why I'm debating about this, because
Because it's the voice, mate.
so overall the trend is the idea that the argument that it's going to become an apartheid state.
That's a nonsense argument.
Yeah,
That
but
doesn't even
cry tears and saying there's going to be an apartheid if we get a no vote. That's not true. So I think what's overall driving this thing is that the Aboriginal community is in they're not doing well health-wise, education-wise across.
That's correct.
This is the thing. There's a lot of pain there, and for those who know and are trying to make effort, and teachers and educators and others, they know that there's a lot of. So there's that part of it. There's also another trend of trying to reverse the European
Holocaust.
colonization of like trying to reverse it, roll it back, which is not possible, right? Because this is not 1788, right? You can't roll back to the pre-colonial era, pre-European domination here. So that's sort of like that's another thing, like trying to create
Don't
justice
think they're trying
for
to reverse it, because you can't reverse it.
to trying to go back to a place where is a really that's not a real thing. And there was wrongs that were done. It was not. There was no Holocaust, because you've got to use words very carefully.
Yeah, that's right.
There was no Holocaust, and there was also I was listening to something about there's actually no genocide that occurred. The technical definition of genocide, as per the United Nations and so forth, that there's no genocide in that sense.
What do you mean?
That in a one group in a systematic program wiped out another group.
Of course they did.
Massacres happen, but that's not a genocide. And some massacres that happen, massacre happened, white people were executed for being participants in that. So it's not like the massacre, like if it was a genocide, like let's say the Holocaust was a genocide.
Of course it was.
That didn't happen here, right? Or the what's in Uganda and the Tutsis and the Hutus, yeah. That, like in 1 year, 800,000 people were killed. Nothing like that ever happened in Australia.
But the numbers were much less back then.
Yeah, but there were massacres. That's acknowledged in Australian history officially. But to call it a genocide, like a systematic program was created by the state to go wipe out, that never happened.
It did.
It didn't even happen in Tasmania, apparently. So, yeah.
That's a topic.
Yeah,
for
there were really badly behaved, really badly ruthless farmers and settlers that acted thing. But I think what I'm saying is like the voice will never do justice to those individuals, the individual who suffered under those sort of things. So, like, there's a lot of like, why is it being created? Like, why do you think it's been created? Like, why do you think it's been created?
I think
there's a frustration with what's happening at the moment.
2 points. One is that the voice, as we see it now, was rushed through because it was an election promise, and there was all this talk about it beforehand. So the fact that it was an election promise has a big impact on that. So he's trying to, in his first, hey, look, this is what we achieved, right? I think that's definitely part of it. The second thing is, I think from the yes side of things, people are seeing the suffering of the Aboriginal people. An average person doesn't know what to do. How can I contribute?
What do you mean, an average person?
Okay, so a non-Indigenous person, generally, that doesn't live in the outback or that doesn't live in where there's a majority of Aboriginal populations, like so city guys.
But not all Aboriginal live in the outback.
No, but I'm talking about city people. How many people in Melbourne actually interact every single day or understand what's going on?
The issues.
Yeah, the issues of Tennant
But a lot of the voice...
No, but let me finish.
A lot of the voice people are city slickers themselves.
But that's my point. Let me finish.
And
right.
And also, does an Indigenous person understand the problems of Indigenous people? We'll continue. But
I've lost my train of thought now.
The Indigenous people, do only Indigenous people understand Indigenous?
Yes, to a certain extent, yes.
That's not true.
That is true.
That's not true.
100% that's true.
That's not 100%.
Because when we're talking about generational trauma, when we're talking about how certain people have been brought up, mate, 100% I agree that, no, not all, majority...
or it's not 100% already.
It's not
Within 2 seconds, you changed it.
Indigenous people will understand that. Majority of non-Indigenous do not understand what Aboriginal people have gone through and are going through.
Yeah, but the people that will solve and actually do the work for it don't have to be Indigenous.
No, they don't. But the people that can support it don't have to be Indigenous, but I think it has to be Indigenous-led. Programs that are led by the group, because they have an understanding, they're more successful. So when we talk about the voice and we're talking about who understands the problem of the Indigenous people, Indigenous people do. That's majority of yes voters in the city are jumping on. I'll give you an example. Jumping on the bandwagon. I'll give you an example. There's an oval that I go for a walk around on a very regular basis. I've seen people with the yes flag or the yes posters on their fences or on their fences and their houses. I know the type of people, the people that live in there. I'm not claiming to know their personal life or what their history is or whatever it is, but the majority of them, I don't know if they've had any interaction with Indigenous people, or they're just jumping on the bandwagon.
Especially in Victoria.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That is my concern with the voice.
Yeah.
Right. When I say emotional, I've got a strong affinity towards Aboriginal people emotionally as well. I know a lot. It's horrendous what some of these guys have been through, right? And it is an intergenerational.
How can you understand?
thing. I'm in the thick of. I'm not in the thick of it. That's the wrong way to put it.
But you're not Aboriginal.
That's not
So
what
how
I'm
can you
saying.
understand?
Because of interactions daily. That's my point. So you've got guys in the city.
So it's not
Melbourne
about being
City.
Indigenous.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But you've got people in the city.
So you just contradicted yourself. You say that Indigenous people only understand. So
No, we're talking about the
So
voice. We're talking about solutions, right?
yeah.
So I'm talking about solutions. If you're looking at what the voice is a collection of Indigenous people or whoever it is that is going to advise Parliament on issues that concern Indigenous people. So that's one thing. That's what the ultimate, the yes.
What are
people
those
se-
issues?
The yes people are selling it as that. All right, just let me finish.
Yeah.
The yes people are selling it as that. These issues, right? Now, the problem there is, so I'm taking both sides of the story. I'm undecided right now, right? When I say yes,
But the
emotionally,
ANIC, Imams Council,
but bro, there's so much stuff.
they've said,
I don't know
they're
one
telling
thing-
us to do,
I don't know one thing
Yes.
I have listened to Anik on.
yeah, probably not, yeah.
Like, seriously. Like, so for me, that's a non-issue. No offense to them all. Like, they're more pious than I am and they're, imams or whatever. But there's nothing that I can't think of anything where I've gone, good on you, boys. I back that. I don't remember anything. Right? Nothing comes to mind. So they're going to talk about the voice. How many of these guys have actually been out there to understand what's going on? So are they making an informed decision on yes or no? Or are they just going, yep, the government of the day, and I'll probably get shot down in flames for saying this, the government of the day is saying go yes, so we're going to back that. What would they have said if the opposition was in party? So but I don't want to get into that. Like that's not for me. You guys, alims and all that, you work it out with them. You guys are imams. My personal thing is, majority of people in the city, I don't think actually understand the issues of Aboriginal people. That's why I'm saying I don't know if the voice is the right thing. Because even then, how do you make sure that those people that are on the panel of the voice, this is my concern, right, are not going to be corrupted by the position that they're given? Who's going to vote them into position? Who's going to be? I do feel that needs to be recognition of Aboriginal people. The worst part is this is like, I feel like I'm towing the same line as Dutton.
Regarding the recognition thing, they also, like, even on the no vote, they've also acknowledged that as well. There should be some
But
recognition.
that's why I'm saying this is why I'm cringing, because me and Dutton are like almost on the same page.
Yeah.
Where he's like, we'll have another referendum
Yeah.
to say, should there be recognition? 100% there should. I believe there should be recognition
Yeah.
of Aboriginal people. The thing with my concern with the voice is, we talked about it last week. You're saying some Muslims are saying that we can have representation. What the hell are you talking about? That means then all religions should have representation. So we're changing the constitution for that. And then if you identify as LGBTQI+, does that mean you need to be recognized in the constitution?
Yeah.
Where does it stop?
Pakistanis.
Pakistanis, here we go.
We hear the voices.
Right?
Because we don't have a voice in our own country. But
Yeah, I know. That's a different story. So, like I said, I'm completely undecided on this. I am on genuinely, all jokes aside, I say emotion because you're just a non-emotional pragmatist when it comes to stuff like this. So I'm just taking the flip side.
let's go through the arguments on the actual official pamphlet of the so we go through it one by one. So the first argument for the yes camp is this idea came directly from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people. So voting yes means
So
support.
they talk about this Uluru Statement of the Heart.
Yeah. It did not come from politicians, which is irrelevant, accepting a proposal backed by 80% of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, supporting an aspiration to put forward by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people over decades. The call for a voice did not come from politicians. 2017, after many work and countless conversations in every part, the Uluru Statement of the Heart, calling for recognition in the Constitution through a voice, asking us to help make practical changes in their lives and create better opportunities for their children. Australians from all walks of life, all faiths, all cultures, and all sides have been given this.
This voice is not going to solve. I'm going to be, when you read the yes stuff, I'll argue against it. When you read the no stuff, I'm going to argue against it.
I'll just read it. That's what my job is. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to talk about it as well.
Sorry, go. Go.
So the thing is that this is part of it is the idea came from them. Yeah, bad ideas can come from these people as well, right? Doesn't necessarily is a good idea.
Yeah,
Like,
I'll give you that. I'll give you
yeah,
that. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, that's fair.
yeah, I have bad ideas and
You
good
have
ideas.
A lot of bad ideas.
And therefore,
No, sorry. Sheikh Khalid is perfect.
yeah. So that's the first thing. That's irrelevant to the solution, right? Calling a recognition in the Constitution through a voice, like, but how does that help with what you're using opportunities for their children and make their lives better? Like, how does it even connect the two? Like,
So I think where they're coming from with that is that if we have a voice, because right now there is a feeling that you've got parliamentarians, politicians sitting in Canberra, making decisions for people that are Northern Territory or outback.
but there's Aboriginal ministers. There is already
But
consultation,
even with those Aboriginal ministers, there's no faith in them. Straight up.
and there's also ministers of those regions
Yes.
who are consulting those elders and so
they're
forth.
not.
They are.
This is the problem.
That's not true.
It's a
That's not
political
true.
thing. No, on the ground, when people come in and I think a lot of it is.
You don't think an MP in Alice Springs, as an example, or Tennants Creek, an MP doesn't meet his constituency and talk to them and is aware of what's happening on the ground?
He meets them and talks to them, but what changes is he actually making? What impact is he having?
But he's the representative of those people.
That's the problem.
So just change your representative in the next election
Do you want to go and run
for
for Parliament?
no.
And do something
Yeah.
about it?
So do you understand? Like, it's like it doesn't even
Look, in
Okay.
theory, what you're saying in theory is absolutely correct. Reality is something different. So people are reaching
So one
out.
community wants a voice. Why does it make it different from any other community that wants LGBT? Like you mentioned, LGBT.
Well,
They can come.
because-
Well, this directly came from the LGBT community. They want to have a say for laws that are drawn up, or they have.
Did they actually say that?
No. I mean, as an example, like or like, let's say the
Or the
Hindus,
Muslims, those
the
Muslims.
Muslims. They will have they want to have a voice in the parliament on legislation that's drawn up.
I think this is the difference is we're talking about a culture that's 65,000 years old, a culture that was here before anybody else came up, the original inhabitants of the land, and the purpose is to recognize them and to
But that's not what they're
undo.
saying.
I know.
But that's not what's been said in the first point. We're talking about the first point. That's not what it's talking about. The first point talking about the idea came from them. So we're going point by point. The first point is that this came from them.
Okay.
That this idea came from this community, which
Yeah,
has
but-
no
but-
bearing on the structure, the cost, the efficacy of this. There's nothing mentioned about that. It just came from them. But then there's many Aboriginals that are going out on social media. Warren Mundine, Anthony Mundine. Warren Mundine's a lawyer. Anthony Mundine's a boxer, the most famous Muslim Aboriginal. Like he's saying no.
Kathy Freeman
They
saying
know-
yes.
Yeah, I'm saying there's so many Aboriginal. Then they went to someone and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Like they don't even know, not even aware of
No,
it.
majority
So-
don't.
Yeah, they would. Yeah.
Majority in the bush are not aware of it. There was this, I saw it the other day, this 60 Minutes episode about it. All they're hoping is, I think it was a fair in Tennant Creek something. All they're hoping is for change. That's
From
it.
status quo, that things should
Just
improve.
things should improve. The average person on the ground just wants things to improve.
But you see, Warren Mundine, he argued the point that the only way to improve this community is to invest and give employment and develop them as a people, like provide them opportunities and economically uplift these communities.
And the problem is a lot of money has been spent to try and economically uplift people. However, it was in the wrong areas.
But
or
he's
in
an
the wrong
he's a
direction.
success as an example himself as a businessman and opened many businesses.
That's fantastic.
Specifically in the community, and he's saying this is the way that, like, and he gave example of other people who are from these communities who become they become employers in those communities. So that's
Which
sort
is
of
fantastic.
yeah. All right,
Okay.
that's 1 point thing. Now for the 10 reasons for the vote.
Constitutional. Oh, you going the
The
other
voice is legally risky. This is the argument for the no vote. So the voice is legally risky. Australia's constitution is our most important legal document. Every word can be open to interpretation. Australia hasn't changed its constitution since 1977.
Wow.
This will be the biggest change to our democracy in Australian history. It is a leap into the unknown. The voice has not been road tested. There is no comparable constitutional body like this anywhere in the world. Enshrining a voice in the Constitution means it opens it to legal challenge and interpretation by the High Court. Legal experts don't agree and can't know for sure how the High Court will interpret such a constitutional change.
That scares me. That last bit scares me.
And
because the High Court is a bunch of humans with their own emotions, with their own biases that will open it. It's like the Supreme Court of the USA.
Yeah, they said an activist High Court would just use this any way they like.
There you go.
I would foresee, one of the High Court judge, he says, I would foresee a decade or more of constitutional and administrative law litigation arising out of a voice.
Wow.
This opens a legal can of worms.
It does.
Yeah, and then you need like large bodies and expenses, all those QC, all those Queen's Counsel, like all those lawyers.
Casey now.
Casey, well, King's Counsel, sorry, yeah. All the KCs and all those guys.
They're loving it.
They will be just like, the amount of money they'll be making.
$12,000 a day.
Yeah, for
especially
giving
constitution
legal
lawyers.
Exactly. So it'll be just a plethora of cases.
I think we should go back to uni and study law if this goes through.
Become cases.
There's enough time for that.
All right, number 2 from the yes. Yep. So yeah, that's the thing. Like you're so there's no precedent of it anywhere in the world. So this is literally is in the unknown, going to the unknown.
I thought New Zealand's treaty was this. Are you saying to me that?
And there are all these other voices like pay the rent. Have you seen that?
No.
They're basically saying like, all right, all Australians should pay rent to the Aboriginal community for like being here. And there's a treaty. Then there's the treaty.
No, we were never at war, official war. There was never a war like New Zealand.
Yeah. Number 2, constitutional recognition for concrete results. So this is for the yes vote. Constitutional recognition for concrete results. Constitutional recognition is a powerful statement that will drive practical change. Voting yes means recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people as the first people of Australia, celebrating and sharing 65,000 years of history, sending a powerful message to the world about. I mean, they talk about 65,000.
No, I disagree with this because you know what?
There is no 65,000 years of history. There's 65,000 years of people existing here, but there's no recorded history that we can tap into.
No, but apart from that, recognising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first peoples of Australia, the voice as it is written right now, you don't have to have it written like that to recognise that.
Yeah. But everybody knows
they're
that.
Talking about you can have a preamble. It's not about whether everyone knows or not.
Yeah,
they could have a preamble in the Constitution.
But they didn't ask for that.
No, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's what I think is one of the.
So the yes doesn't have to. You can have a preamble without this.
I don't know why I just did that.
Yeah.
Right, and then sending a powerful message to the world about Australia's unity. But is it sending a message of unity though?
Yeah, these are wishy-washy arguments. Making a practical difference for the future.
It doesn't. This argument doesn't have any weight.
Generation Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islands people have enriched our nation, and they will continue to with their culture and creativity, their knowledge and the land and the waters, and their contribution to Australian life.
I agree with that.
Our ancient continent is home to the world's oldest living cultures. Recognise that in our constitution is an inspiring way to celebrate our shared history. Voting yes as an act of reconciliation that will deliver real results. The form of recognition Indigenous Australians are asking for support a voice, a vehicle for. They keep saying that as though all Indigenous Australians are supporting this. And Albo said 80%, but
it's not.
Yeah, a vehicle for practical change. 80% Indigenous people. He was saying, trying to argue the point.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. I think he's just pulling out figures from here and there.
Albo.
All right.
What have you
so
done
that's the
to
second.
my heart?
The second argument is constitutional recognition for concrete results. Yeah, not really. Not a very convincing. Number 2. There are no details, and this is the biggest one for Albo.
This is what the no people.
So this is
are
the
focusing
no
on.
argument.
But this is what the no people are focusing on to scare.
It's not about scaring because it's a real question.
It is about scaring.
Look at the statements. This is a big decision. However, the government won't reveal any details before the vote. We don't know how it will help a disadvantaged community and close the gap. We don't know how many members the voice would have. We don't know if they will be elected or chosen or how this would occur. We don't know how it would make representation or be held accountable. These details will only be worked out after the Australians have voted. According to the Yes campaign, it doesn't make sense to have details before the vote. It doesn't make any sense to do that detailed consultation until we have the support of the Australian people to change the constitution. Yes 23 brochure. this is the wrong way around. You wouldn't buy a house without inspecting it or a car without test driving it. Yet you are asking us to vote or change the constitution without details. Australians shouldn't be asking to sign a blank check. How can Australians possibly agree to something where we don't know the details?
I
the senator.
I just thought about something.
Yep.
Any referendum in the future, because referendums have failed because they've tried to focus on one key point of yes and no. And I think any party that has a referendum in the future needs to actually have the complete detail and release it that way. That's probably the only way it's going to pass in Australia. Because Aussies, we want to know the little nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Before we put our name to it. It's not just jumping on the bandwagon of, Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
We want to know the nitty gritty. Just because I vote a certain party doesn't mean I'm going to agree with everything you say.
And that is a very strong argument. Like, there's no details. Those arguments are so strong.
The problem is the focus of the no detail has occurred because referendums in the past have been focus on just this one point. Do Australian people agree that there should be a voice to Parliament?
Yeah, because
that's what I'm saying. If that was it, without there's going to be a voice to Parliament, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. If that was just the question, yes or no, and then we'll work out afterwards with both houses, both parties, and that was clear, that's a different story. But right now it seems like because no details been released, and when the yes people are being questioned about it, it's almost like they're trying to dodge the bullet. That's what's caused the issue.
And you see the next point of the yes campaign is so wishy-washy that against this argument... No, I'm just saying, if you put this argument, the details that they're asking for, like what are the consequences? Because it's consequential. Like there are consequences of this change to the constitution. So it's not a light matter. It's not a small matter. So, but in return, you're being presented with an emotional argument as opposed to dealing with. And so their next.
This argument doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah. So the third one from the yes side is the voice is a vehicle to deliver real improvements to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. And you just go back to the previous point of the no campaign. How?
Yeah.
Life expectancy, infant mortality, and health, education, employment. But you have not shown how.
What do you mean? Huh? I think their point is that we will have representatives from the Aboriginal community because they know what's going on. Look, I agree with that. That they're the best guys as a vehicle for change. As long as there's no other, got to be very careful what I say there, exterior impact or external impacts on their decision making process, which is hard because we're human beings.
There'll be lobbies. We're
human beings. It is what it is, right? But that's the whole point. I think that what they're trying to say is, from a yes campaign, they're living in a perfect world, where this utopian world where these guys are going to come to with
woke
ideas.
Lefty stuff,
Woke lefty or utopia. Utopia is not necessarily woke lefty. Yeah. Right? They're living in this
La La Land. Yeah.
When the reality is we're not in utopia, we're we're living in an Orwellian time.
Yeah.
Everything's open to corruption. What is that? Power corrupts absolutely. Absolute power corrupts. Or
whatever. Yeah. For a long time, government with good intentions has spent billions trying to deal with these issues, but they haven't achieved lasting because they haven't listened to the people on the ground.
It's crazy that we're saying that.
That's not true. But that's not true. They've gone. I mean, even Tony Abbott went and walked in the Northern Territory.
Seriously,
didn't you see that?
Tony
he used to hang out. He hung out there for a while. They actually bothered to go.
They bothered to go because it was good for the TV cameras. Don't tell me they bothered to go because they
their
were
class
actually
is not under question.
No, their class is under question. You can't tell me they bothered to go because they gave a shit. Excuse the French, because they cared.
The current approach is broken, and the voice is our best chance. Not necessarily. There could be another alternative. No one thinks that the voice will instantly solve everything, but we will finally have the right approach in place. Here are 3 examples, right? Better health. The community-controlled Aboriginal medical services employ local Indigenous people. They run clinics and visit the remote areas, right? Why not just do that instead of what's a voice got to do with that?
But this is what I'm saying. This is where they're showing, and I was just about to say, these better health services is definitely having an impact.
Better results in education. Families and communities leaders have involved in every step of the new Tupamabaka school. But the thing is that these things are happening now, right? So why
are we not continuing that?
Why not just keep expanding these programs? If you're giving examples of the current system's successes...
Yeah, that's successful.
So that's just an argument against yourself. Like that doesn't even... like it's still not a convincing ensure people have a better life. I don't see how, like you're presenting current system cases. I mean, let's read one. So listening to work, better results in education. Families and communities leaders have been involved in every step of the new, some example of school. Genuine partnership have driven strong school attendance rates and better results. And I think Dupuma, Firebirds robotics team recently completed an Nevex International Championship in Texas, the first team from the Northern Territory ever to. Now that happened without.
That's fantastic.
That happened without the voice. So you're giving more cases like it doesn't even make like how. Imagine the progress Australia could make with a voice. Here are 3 examples where listening to Indigenous people have delivered better outcomes, but that's available now. Like that's a good partnership between industry and so forth now. Like, and that means already companies and education institutes are factoring. Like I don't know. I'm not sure like what they. I mean, I understand what they're saying that. Will ensure people have a better life, but they cannot show how. And the how that they've shown is under the current system.
It's like the impact a sorry had.
Mm.
That had a massive impact on the psychological.
Yeah, on the strain conscience. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
It had a huge impact both sides.
But this is not what
right?
is.
But that's what I'm saying. This is not what this is.
This is about changing the constitution.
And this is where you can add a preamble to the constitution.
Yeah, and that's what
recognize Indigenous Australians. I definitely agree with that, but. What is this actually doing when you look at it in the crux? Is it actually doing anything?
Yeah, that's what the argument.
The yes vote doesn't, like, this is what I'm saying. I'm very much on the fence. I'd love to vote yes, just from an emotional point of view and a connection point of view. However, you're not convincing me, boys.
So they go further. The no campaign goes further. It won't help Indigenous Australians. I know there's a strong, even in the Muslim community, Anik and others, I think there's a sense of the discussion trying to understand why they've taken the positions more about they want justice, right? Like this will be more just if this is done.
What does that mean, they want justice?
Yeah, like, because we're all on the same...
What does that mean?
We're equal before the law in
When
Australia.
you look at justice, we're talking about justice is equating to your legal system.
Yeah.
Right? You're talking about moral justice. But if you're talking about moral justice, then whose morality are you using?
It's more justice of the past, like justice, moral justice for the past.
Yeah, but whose morality are you using? Because if you ask, a slave trader of the past, extreme examples right now, he's going to be like, no, you guys are wrong. I was morally justified in what I did at that time.
Yeah.
So it's, victory is written by the winner.
Yeah.
And that moral justice is written by the winner. Unfortunately, where we're at now in trying to undo the situation.
Yeah, and the Constitution is not it's not an Aboriginal
but are we doing?
concept.
And also, are we voting yes because it's going to make me feel better about myself, or am I voting yes because I genuinely want to see some change,
regardless of the outcome?
Yeah.
Right? So, number 4 point for the No campaign, it won't help Indigenous Australians. We all want to help Indigenous Australians in disadvantaged communities to close the gap and achieve reconciliation. However, more bureaucracy is not the answer. And there are currently hundreds of Indigenous representative bodies at all levels of government, along with the National Indigenous Australians Agency, which has 1,400 staff. A centralised voice risks overlooking the needs of regional and remote communities. A national voice cannot speak for country.
I agree.
This is Warren Mundine.
Yeah, what it means is what he said when you talk about country, it's about that tribe's country, not country Australia.
Yeah.
And we've got hundreds of tribes in Australia. So are we going to have 2 representatives from every tribe?
Yeah, it won't work.
Is that even possible?
That's what he's saying. A national voice cannot speak. And he's himself an Aboriginal.
State, yes, I get. States could have a voice. States could have a voice and go, okay, what do you guys need? What do you want? Yeah. That makes sense to me. On a state
and level. There will be some states that adopt a voice.
On a federal level, I just struggle. I'm
struggling. Right now, many voices are crying out for help in tackling devastating social problems in some remote communities. What's needed is action. What we need in Canberra is ears, not a voice. Senator Jacinta Price, and she's a Walpiri woman herself, an Aborigine. So we need in Canberra is ears.
Yeah, but she's said some pretty controversial statements.
All right,
which I disagree with.
So this is the second. It won't help. According to the No campaign, it will not help Indigenous Australians. The other side, it'll bring our country together.
It's dividing it right now.
Which is not...
it's
post vote.
No, it's still no.
No,
will
no.
it?
Post vote, becoming reconciled with our past and moving to a better future. I think Australians have done generally.
well.
They've,
We've done
in our
well.
lifetime, we've seen it that they like Australia was more racist once upon a time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's less
We've
racist
got-
now.
we've got-
I think Australia is much less racist now than it was, used to be.
Yeah, I think
In the last 50 years, I think it's
I
moved.
would 100% have enjoyed being in primary school more now than I would have when I
You
went
work
to
primary school now,
Then I
yeah.
went to primary school.
Voting yes means becoming reconciled with our past, a change only you can make happen. Australia has come a long way since our constitution came in 1901. We now rightly celebrate Indigenous Australians and their contribution to our country, like 26th of January, isn't it?
Yeah.
Australia Day.
But that again. See that one.
Yeah, that's
That one I have an issue with Australia Day.
yeah. That would
That one I genuinely have an issue with.
at
even
the
though
1967
my son was
referendum,
born on that
90% of Australians voted yes to change the constitution, so Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders would be counted. I mean, in 67, 90% of Australians that they should be counted as
human beings.
population. No,
Yeah,
they
no,
considered
because they were
human
flora
beings.
and fauna.
No, they were not, and
Right,
they were considered person non grata, whatever it is.
Persona non grata.
Yeah, so population the same as everyone else. It was a unifying step forward. I mean, I'm surprised that Australians at that time, like what we think is like from the 80s, from our childhood.
No, you find that conservatives are generally quite pragmatic,
Yeah,
like yourself.
together, and it wasn't like, and there wasn't like a, there was no like, they didn't have to do it in the sense
No,
of
they didn't.
there was no,
And there was no push. There was no.
and the Aborigines could not, they exerted no power, no leverage. They had no leverage, but the moral guilt or the feeling of a moral justice that they know they should be part of Australians. Like that's Australia. But I'm just saying.
Think about what it sounds like.
I know what I'm saying.
Think about what that sounds like.
No, but
We're
the
doing
fact
you a
that-
favor by recognizing you as a human being.
not as a human being, as Australian, right? As an Australian, that's what we're talking about.
Australian and human being. Think about what that sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, but we shouldn't equate 1960s to. From that, we understand that Australians in general were not they were not the KKK.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, as a society, they were not. They were actually quite
No,
progressive.
And the thing is, even though one thing that you got to say about Australia, right? Okay, let's put it this way. I'll draw from my experiences, right?
As a
as an Indian man in the bush, right? Even though they're
yeah.
bleep insert bleep here racist, they still got your back if it comes down to a third person coming to be racist towards you.
Yeah.
It's like, that's my little racist guy. Only I can be racist towards him. Well,
It was a unifying
I don't know
step
if that's a
forward.
good thing.
All right. All right. Then we go to the other side. Point number 5. No issue is beyond its scope. So that's the other danger of the voice as it is presented now. The voice model isn't just to the parliament. It goes much further to all areas of executive government. That includes all government departments, agencies, and other bodies like the Reserve Bank. Decisions in relation to the economy. I mean, they're smart for basically making you worried. Oh, they're going to come after your money. They're coming after your bank account.
It's the same. It's the same strategy as Como said. Labor's declared war on the weekend with electric vehicles.
Oh, yeah. Decisions in relation to the economy, national security, infrastructure. Because everything affects the Aboriginal people, all right? So infrastructure, health, education, more would be within its scope. In the words of the member of the government referendum working group, the voice will be able to speak to all parts of the government, including the cabinet, ministers, public servants, and independent statutory offices and agencies, such as the Reserve Bank. It can't shut the voice up.
Yeah, but it has no power.
But it can't shut it up either. It's the shrill voice, the shrill.
It's an ex-wife.
In the words of
Okay,
the
that was
Constitution
wrong. I shouldn't say
law
that.
professor who supports the voice, I think it's fatally flawed because it does not. What it does is retain the full range of review of executive action, even if they're just doing a review, but that is part of an executive action, part of decision making. So they're an overview, part of the process of the executive decision.
No.
Action. Yeah, no, he's saying that. This is a constitutional law professor. I think it's fatally flawed because what it does retain, retain the full range of review of executive action. This means the voice can comment on everything from
Comment means nothing.
from submarines to parking tickets. We will have regular judicial interventions.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any power to make any changes. It can comment.
Yeah, but this is that aspect
Unless
is
the
part
High
of-
Court says, well, it's commented, so you've got to listen to it.
Yeah, many legal experts have expressed concern about the scope. However, their concerns have simply been overlooked. All right, let's go to the other side. That's a very strong argument. Save money. When government listens to the people, they get better outcomes and use funding more effectively.
I don't even know why they put this in, because no government saved money since
When you involve
1901.
people, you make better decisions, and the money you spend goes where it's needed most, to the people on the ground. Governments from both sides have invested billions in programs, and haven't fixed problems or reached communities. A voice will help us listen to local and save money. We're all better off when government doesn't waste taxpayer money on things that aren't working. Well, the voice will be paid.
Now.
The voice, yeah. And I get it, government wastes money because they waste a lot of money because it's not their own money, it's not a business.
And because bureaucracy as well.
And bureaucracy is expensive. And now you're going to add another layer of bureaucracy, which is called the voice. You got to pay for all those guys to do their job.
Depends on what job they give me.
Huh? Yeah.
Depends on what job they give me. But that's just my point, right? That was said in jest, but that's exactly my point.
The number 6 on the other side, the Australian Parliament deals with it risks delays and dysfunction. The Australian Parliament deals with hundreds of pieces of legislation a year. The voice's scope goes beyond Parliament, covering departments, agencies, and areas of the executive government. How would the voice handle this? If the voice is not satisfied with the way it has been consulted or a decision that is made, it could appeal to the courts. How long would it take? Many legal experts have warned. Many legal experts, yeah. Did I say illegal? All right. Many legal experts have warned that this would cause considerable delays in decision making. The voice will almost certainly become a lightning rod for protracted debate about a vast array of current issues. Nearly every matter of current concern on the national agenda will be seen as having an indigenous component of some kind. The risk of legal appeals and delays means a risk of dysfunctional government. That is not good for Australia.
No, I think that is just scaremongering. That point to me is scaremongering.
Depends. We don't know, because those people that are appointed in the voice, what do they want to do? Do they want to go to treaty? Do they want to go more power?
There's a lot of people that want to go to treaty. But
Yes,
I think that
you're opening his door to that.
Yeah, but that point, I think, is just scaremongering. It's
All right.
gone too far.
The time is now. The idea of the voice has been decades in the making. They don't risk more of the same, worse life. Yeah, this is just an emotional argument. On the other side, it opens the door for activists. We've mentioned this already. The legal uncertainty and the absence of details raise the question of what comes next. Some voice supporters are upfront in saying that the voice will be the first step to reparations and compensation and other radical changes. This is the first step. See, one of them who said this, Thomas Mayo, in the referendum working group. This is the first step. It is a vital step, and it puts all the explanation behind it. Pay the rent, for example. How do we get? How do we do? Sorry, my brain's a bit noisy.
How do we do that in a way that is transparent and actually sees
reparations and compensation for Aboriginal and Stros? Yeah, no one's paying reparations in Australia. The no will. If you the guy, one of the main promoters of it, has written a book on it explaining it. He's talking about reparations. That this is the first step. This is not going to go. So yes, the Uluru Statement from the Heart says a voice is the first step before a treaty and truth telling.
This is where
now he's digging a hole for themselves. By definition, a treaty is an agreement between governments, not between one group of citizens and its government. John Howard said this as well. How can you make a treaty with bits of yourself? A member of the government referendum work group is described.
Johnny Howard, I can't. Please.
I know. I quoted him. I'm just saying, it is a way to further what we need our people in any negotiation for treaties and for other things like legislation, reform, and abolishment of the institutions, the old colonial institution that harm us, right? Thomas Mayo as well. Already many activists are campaigning, abolish Australia Day, change our flag and our institution and symbols.
I think we should change Australia Day.
It's always been abolish Australia Day. Changing the date is a cop-out.
No, I disagree
with that. If there's a constitutionally enshrined voice, these calls would grow louder. Australians need to understand that the voice will be used to support the demands of who said this? Terence Cole of the AORFD case, former New South Wales Supreme Court judge. Australians need to understand that the voice will be used to support the demands for recognition of coexisting sovereignty. A Makarrata Commission designed to produce a treaty and monetary compensation and rewriting of Australian history. The potential for great irremediable harm to Australian society means the voice should never be incorporated into the Australian Constitution.
Scaremongering. I'm sorry, but to me that's scaremongering.
No, he's giving a legal argument. He goes, you're doing something to the structure of...
No, I think he's... I feel like he's projecting it too far.
Yeah, but then their statements are also problematic about reparations.
I'm talking about just a
their
no
statement, they're paying rent and whatnot. What are you talking about? Right?
You got to pay rent.
I'm not paying rent. I'm not paying rent again.
That's what it is. You're worried about paying no shit. I bought this house. I got to pay rent on it now. I'm a renter.
Yeah.
I just grab my tent and go bush.
Practical. And nobody's going to come to Australia. Look,
This
all the
is
talent that
scaremongering.
comes, that becomes Australians and all the Indians and everybody. They don't want to come to
Australia.
Australia. They don't want to come to Australia
That's
to...
not a bad thing.
What are you talking? No. But Modi supporters.
I get
But like
You had to slip that one
Australia
in there.
needs to bring migrants in to build their country. And who's going to come to a country like it happened in Fiji with George Spade and all that? And after that, they basically made laws for Indians that they can't actually own land. So what happens? All the businesses that were owned there, they basically jumped and they said they went to New Zealand, Canada, Australia. They said, all right, this is not a country for us. Like, we're not treated as equal citizens.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen here. I feel like that side of things, just like some wishy-washy arguments, I just feel like that's scaremongering.
Okay. Continue. Practical advice that works. This is the 7th point from the yes. We don't know that. That's they're giving practical advice.
I reckon just read the topics.
Making governments are working better. There's nothing really of substance there. If you go to the other side, the other side gives more concrete.
No, they give more scarier answers.
Scarier answers, yeah, but they're more specific. They're more specific in what could happen. These guys are giving wishy-washy sort of things. Generally, they're saying we'll help.
One side is love and rainbows. The other side is fire and brimstone.
No, it's not. The other side is trying to. The no side is trying to protect the goodness that we have in this country.
Here we go. The other side is scaremongering.
No, it's not.
Points.
No,
yes, it is.
certain points maybe, but not here. It'll be costly and bureaucratic. That we can agree upon.
No. In Australia, something will be costly and bureaucratic. No.
The voice will be permanent.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to.
What are you going to do? Have another referendum to take it out?
Yeah. There are better ways forward. Let's see their solution. This referendum is not about simply recognising Indigenous Australian Constitution.
Agree with this.
This can be achieved without tying into a risky, unknown and permanent voice. Recognition has the widespread support of Australians. However, the voice proposal is the problem. There are many Australians who oppose the voice in principle. Others might be willing to consider less risky voice option, but the government has not given you this choice. When previous changes to the Constitution has been proposed, there have been a constitutional convention to properly consider options and details. No such process happened here. The process was rushed and heavy-handed. This approach isn't unifying or effective, it's divisive.
Divisive.
Divisive? Yeah. Or divisive, yeah. Divisive. Yeah. This decision is yours. This is a very important decision. Unfortunately, the legitimate questions and concern of many Australians have been dismissed. It's true. Albert keeps on dismissing it.
He rushed it.
Fortunately, this referendum won't be decided by politicians, corporations, or celebrities. It'll be decided by every Australian. It affects every Australian.
Do we count as Australian even though we look like muzzies that just got off the plane?
We're Australians.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. All right. That's the official document, but just wanted to show you from the legal aspect. There is it's getting a bit late, the voice referendum summary of the legal realities of the voice, which is covered there a little bit. We'll just quickly go through it. There's a debate that was held, or not debate, like a discussion on the Sydney Institute, and this is a summary of it.
Can you put a link to that? It was actually really good.
Just go on YouTube and look.
The Sydney Institute.
The Sydney Institute and what's his name? Professor Chris Merritt, and also
just put that. It'll come up.
Chris Merritt. He's the vice president of the Rule of Law Education Centre, and also
$50,000 a day, you reckon?
George Williams, professor of constitutional law at University of New South Wales. So he argued for the yes. So there was like a debate and discussion, and they put questions. So you just put in YouTube their names, and then you can find that it's about an hour, half an hour speaking, and then half an hour of. But it gives them more legalistic because we're changing a legal document. So then these two like experts.
Do you reckon it'll make it?
Huh? I don't think so. Based on what we just read now.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, if any Australian reads this, like especially on the note, they will. There's a few
undecided. Those that are undecided.
Yeah.
If they read this, I've got a feeling they're going to
Sky News.
No.
Sky News viewers will not vote for it.
That beautiful truth-telling machine that's out there, the one you can trust.
So the arguments, I'll read it point by point quickly. Amendments will establish an advisory body that is political. That is a political institution with influence in political realm. Right. That's for the yes side. Mm-hmm. Right. In a modern constitution, there should be no place for race at all. We should be removing all references to race. That's the no. Right. Why we bring a race aspect into it for the future. Number two, for the no, entirely appropriate to have an opportunity for Indigenous people to have say on laws due to their unique status. There is no other group with the status in the community, and our nation is formed upon their ancestral lands. Sovereignty of land derives from all people of this nation. That's the no campaign.
I'm more on the side of the yes on that one.
Right. 1960s, but their ownership doesn't mean anything because
it's a symbolic thing.
It's a symbolic thing.
It has
a
big impact.
It doesn't have actually thing on land.
It has a big psychological impact.
1967 referendum. I don't think so. I think that you're talking for the Aboriginal people. That's not what that's not what they're saying. 1967.
If I say to you, "I love you," won't that have a big psychological impact on you?
1967 referendum. You can just say "I love you" without paying rent. 1967 referendum did not include positive references. Let me just finish. 1967 referendum did not include positive references to Indigenous people and left unfinished business. But that's a separate issue. Amendments will change the system of government whereby Indigenous people have a second method of influence public policy and the ability to have additional say on every law and administration. This will erode equality of citizenship, where everyone should be equal not just before the law, but before those who make the law. Constitutional permits, like in this modern country of Australia, which didn't exist 250 years ago, the people should have, if this is the system, why should have a certain group of people? I think that's intolerable, that a certain group of people have another chance at influencing the government.
Maybe because they didn't have enough chances in the past.
But the thing is, the way forward is to give them equal representation. Like are you saying that...
Giving them a leg up.
But that's like not before law, right? And lawmakers. Wallahu alam. The Constitution permits the states to disenfranchise people with their race stated overtly in a race-based power to make laws because of person's race and fix upon them negative consequences. But the thing is, this is referring to the actual constitution. There is race, like a negative context. So, but fix that, right? And he said we have a racially discriminatory system as it is. On the other side, as it is entrenched in the constitution, it will be permanent. Mechanisms, laws to improve standards should be temporary and terminated when. Sorry, I'm just mumbling it up. As it is entrenched in the constitution, it will be permanent. It will be permanent. Mechanism, laws to improve standards should be temporary and terminated when goals, that is closing the gap, have been achieved.
I just had this thought about imagine from what they've just said here, you've got a voice to Parliament, but it gives them such a leg up that it goes the extreme the other way.
Yeah, there was apparently...
then everybody else is disenfranchised.
I was listening to, I think it was Warren Mundine. He was talking about they had like a council of Aboriginal like in the 90s or 80s or something. And then by the end of their convention, they said Australia, we should secede or something like that. Like they went the other they just dismantled it. Like, all right, like, you guys can go home. They wanted to like have their own government or something. So all right, time to pack it in, mate. The voice has the power to make. This is for the Yes campaign. The voice has the power to make representation with no power to veto or direct, and no obligation on Parliament or executive to follow. This is defence of the voice.
Yeah, but that is depend on the interpretation of the High Court.
This will not affect the ability of Parliament to make decisions. The High Court will make sure the voice operates within its remit, within the Constitution. High Court challenges regarding representation made to Parliament. It is expected that if Parliament ignored the voice or refused to read its representation, then the High Court has consistently said that it will not intervene in internal workings of the Parliament. High Court challenges regarding representation made to executive. It expected that if the executive ignored the voice or refused on the other side, unlimited scope of subject matter which the voice can make representations. The scope is not limited to the matters that relate only to Indigenous people. The High Court and not Parliament will have a final say on scope of subject matter of representations made to Parliament and executive. High Court challenges regarding representation made to executive. So if we were going to change the constitution, there should be very little room for creativity. There are so many unknown about that flows from representations. Even the word representation is problematic. The High Court should not be left to fill in the gaps. Uncertainty about the role of the High Court could be removed if the voice was legislated and not put in constitution. Right? That's what he's saying. Like, you just make a law and you can repeal the law. Like, if you see problems with it, like, why have to go through the voice, the constitution? You can actually do it another way.
I think it started out as recognition of Aboriginal people and morphed into something else.
Yeah. Give Parliament, subject to the Constitution, the power to make laws relating to voice. So he says, the yes vote said, Parliament has a key role in determining how the voice will operate, with broad powers to make laws generally in respect to the voice, including to regulate procedures, composition, works. Actually, the Parliament has all the procedure, how the voice will operate, the Parliament will vote on it, right? But that's subject to the governments at the time, because they're the majority. In terms of vote, like Labor at the moment has got a very strong majority. That's why they're pushing it probably.
Whoever comes into power, then...
I think that's at the heart of this, is that Albo has come on the wave of like so much support. But I think the strain's about to, like they do with they fix up their...
Tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, they fix him up very, very quickly. I think that's what's going to happen.
You're overstepping.
He's like becoming obnoxious. And I think that's happens like with Dan. It happened. Dan Andrews here. Like, they become obnoxious when they're in power too long, and they get too much support. But then Australians
Do you
cut
think
them.
they become obnoxious, or they become ambitious?
Like when a Labor Party comes in, then like at federal level, then they vote Liberal at a state level. Like they just all right, just balance? Check. Yeah, the people. Okay, you're getting out of hand. We need to sort of like just change it up a bit. So when ScoMo stepped out of line, he got a thumping from the electorate. So I think this is what like.
I can't believe he hasn't quit yet.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe he hasn't quit. I think there's only been one other Prime Minister that stayed on after he...
Premier or?
Prime Minister.
Who?
ScoMo. He's still sitting there.
Once in the Constitution, the Parliament makes laws to limit the scope and reach of the voice. That legislation will be subject to the High Court interpretation again, because it's part of the Constitution.
That's the point that I made about...
So there's no...
Depends who's on the High Court, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it would be an activist. Like, if you get an activist High Court, then you got a problem. Recent and finally, amendment is more than recognition. Recent dialogues with Indigenous people sought the voice to have a say on laws and policies that affect them. Treaty to provide for mutual coexistence and truth-telling on their history. The only one that requires constitutional change is the voice, as this would guarantee a say in making laws and policies. I mean, this is the yes vote saying. Amendment would open the door to, there's a no, to New Zealand-style system of co-governance and remove the doctrine of equality of citizenship. Yeah. So, and then I was just reading, in that document, because if you go to their page, Sydney, I think this is Sydney Institute or somebody else did it. Let me just check who did this. This is the Rule of Law Education Centre. So if you go there, so anyway, there's an explanation of what do you call it? What a constitution is, and what they're trying to do, and where they're trying to add this new alteration in the constitution. Right. So anyway, that's sort of all the arguments. I guess the main arguments. You can go.
So you're voting yes?
Personally, I don't see the arguments on the other side will solve. Of course, you want. I mean, definitely. As a citizen in this country,
you don't want
anybody to be you don't want anybody to be oppressed, right? You want everyone to be taken care of. You want justice to be served for everybody. But I think the legalistic arguments and the bureaucracy that will be created and the expense will be created.
They're the holes in this.
Yeah, they're huge holes, and Albo pushing it and sort of like, and he's saying all the Muslims support. It's not true. And all
did he say the Muslims
like
support it?
Muslims and the Jewish community. And the Jewish community came out. What are you talking about? There's a conservative. Like, what are you talking? Why are you saying that all the Jewish community is supporting the voice? Right? Like, because he's not. Like, he goes to one synagogue, two synagogues, and then he gets a wrong idea of what.
Well, that's the same thing as saying Anik represents all of us.
It doesn't. Yeah, exactly. So, like,
that's probably why he said it.
Yeah, and I get it. Why Anik would do what it does because it wants its. Like, there could be several reasons. It could be that it wants to be, in the future have a seat at the table of decision of this country, have their own voice, like a Muslim voice, whatever you want to call it.
Oh my God, God help us.
Or it could be like if we show support and we're close to the center of power,
we get more cash.
There's a power thing. That's one thing. Yeah. Like, we'll be like enshrined and there'll be laws made. Sharia law is made part of the constitution.
Doncaster, how much money are you getting from Elbow?
Yeah, I mean, there are countries like Singapore, for example, where they in the constitution and they have laws. They have like a qadi system, Muslim qadis appointed for divorce matters and so forth. Actually, which saves a lot of headache. Like, you're not dealing with there's Muslims appointed representatives.
Each religion is there.
Yeah. So they have there is a system that has this sort of that does work.
That wouldn't work in Australia. It's too messy.
Yeah, and
there's too much politics in Australia.
And there's too many people that will be irked by Sharia law. And
not just Sharia law, but even within our community, who's going to be the boss? So I want this. It'll be about a power grab.
And I think on the good, why Anik might also not about the seat at the table argument, but they might also want genuinely justice and well-being for the Aboriginal community.
Paid by Anik right now?
Sorry?
Are you getting paid by Anik, or you want Anik, or is there something going on here?
No, this is this podcast.
What's
but they
going
might
on?
be
This
generally doing
podcast
it.
is sponsored by Anik.
They want goodwill and justice and for the indigenous population in this country.
MashaAllah.
But I don't think they've thought out all the arguments and they haven't explained it to the Muslims. If they're speaking to the Prime Minister and organising Muslim organisation, because they one of the organisations, they're not all organisation. They're one of the bodies in Australia, Muslim. There's like AFIC and ANIC and state councils and boards imams in each state.
It's about 1,000 councils in each
state.
So
each one will have its own, and there's like dozens of organisations and masjid and so forth.
Can we do that?
So they're
Masjid Carpark Imams Council.
Yeah, Irfan is the president.
Irfan, you're the president.
So chairman,
Can I be treasurer? We'll go for some grants.
Yeah, you can pay our bills and our debts, But
the government. We just got to apply.
Oh yeah.
That's the whole point.
Just prove
we vote yes for the voice.
Yeah. So I think out of that, there's an argument for that, but I don't think it'll be, even if it's a yes. If it's a yes, I don't think it'll be effective, and I think all the arguments against it are more stronger because it's a legalistic change.
Yes is the underdog at the moment.
No, they're not. They're just overtaken the.
No.
The yes has overtaken the no vote.
No.
Yes,
no, man.
They've just overtaken. Yeah.
What do you mean?
They've overtaken the no. The yes is the under. No. The yes was started off strong. It's gone gradually the other way.
That's what I'm saying.
So the no is now winning.
Yes is the underdog.
It's not the underdog. It was winning.
But it is.
It's
not
polls.
winning anymore. But
and now it's gone back.
Not.
Yeah. You can't call it underdog because underdogs from the start is underdog.
No.
They were winning and then they've gone backwards. I think Australians lie on polls, and then they surprise you at the
That's
election.
What it is. It's always at the last minute where the reality comes out.
It would be surprising if the yes wins, because usually it requires both sides of the aisle 90% generally
very high
to actually cross the 51% in the actual referendum. So
I'll be very surprised if if the yes wins.
Yeah. So, but I think...
and then you're moving overseas then, so you don't have to pay rent?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think it's going to go to that, Milton? But let's see what it comes out to. But personally, I'm inclined towards the no. Based on the legalistic, the law professors and the...
I'm still on the fence.
Judges' arguments.
I'm still on the fence. I will be until the last day. It's just the way it is. Yeah. But they'll find out if it goes yes, whichever tribe is from the Melton area, and make sure they charge you extra.
Yeah. All right. You're already paying council rates, man. Get off my back. I don't want to pay indigenous tax or something. Like a new tax is like added to my monthly, yearly, quarterly council rates. Yeah. All right.
Thank you for watching.
And like, you know, and we'll be paying for what the white man did, and we weren't even here when all that stuff happened.
Yeah,
you know?
we copped the racism when we came
now.
over.
Like we're not the ones who did anything. Like if
and we copped it when we came as well.
We're gonna be paying rent to you guys, and we haven't done anything.
Those char sandwiches sent me out of the classroom. We copped it when we came.
We copped it along with you. We're with you, brothers. Anyway,
for watching. Please like, subscribe, and press that bell icon. Irfan, you got anything to say, brother? Where you going?
Assalamu alaikum.
He's very diplomatic. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.